All right. Well, welcome everyone to this morning's success planning webinar. I am Stephanie Vadnais. I'm with Beyond School Bells, um, and we're going to talk about a team approach to guiding positive behavior. Um, we all know behavior management is a huge topic, a huge need for after school summer program training. So, this is another tool you can add to your team's toolbox. We're going to get started with sharing some introductions. Um, if you are comfortable coming off mute and sharing your name, your organization, and role, and I'd love to hear what's one thing that young people in your program get really excited about. If you're not able to come off mute, that's okay. Um, just put it in the chat. But I'd love to hear from you. I can share quickly. I'm Stephanie Vadnais. I am with Beyond School Bells. Um, my role, part of my role is getting to lead professional development, do provide technical assistance and coaching to after school and summer programs. Something I don't work in a program currently, but I have some young children in my house, and my 10-year-old has really gotten into Beyblades. I don't know if anyone's familiar with them. I wasn't until about a month ago, but now we are all about Beyblades in my house. So I will pass it on to whoever is wants to share next.
I'm Tanya Greiner with Auburn Calvert Dogs Academy, and I guess my role is interim director. I'm getting ready to probably potentially accept that position officially, so I'm excited about that. And honestly, the first thing that came to mind with what my kids are excited about is coloring. They really like having different types of coloring sheets. And it doesn't matter what kind of coloring medium, they just like to color. That and Legos. Legos are a big hit.
Good morning. My name is Stacy Shepard. I am a team leader for Cardinal Community Learning Centers in Crete. My kiddos are just always super excited about soccer. Soccer is just huge here.
For those that are joining, we're just sharing name, organization, and role, and something that kids in your program get really excited about. You're welcome to unmute and share or share in the chat. We have a couple great answers in the chat already. Anyone else like to share?
I'm the chapter director at the Lions Recreation Center in Alliance. Um, our kids here, we started reading club last summer and we continued it into the school year. And the kids always seem to ask if they can read when we first get there, before we have snacks, so that's something that seems to excite them, which I'm very glad to see because a lot of them really didn't want to read last summer and now we want to read. So
You know, I love to hear that, Sarah. That's awesome. All right. Anyone else like to share? I think most people have shared either in the chat or unmuted. All right. Susan, which district are you with or community, if you're willing to share? Love our retired teachers. Both my parents are retired teachers, so I'm very glad you're here. All right. We will keep moving. So, like I said, I already introduced myself. I know many of you. Um, I work with Beyond School Bells. Beyond School Bells is a program of Nebraska Children and Families Foundation. And We are also Nebraska statewide after school network. So we work with programs all over the state to support in many ways, including providing free professional development like this. In a former life, I was a site coordinator at a program in Lincoln. So this tool that I'm going to introduce to you today is a version of something I used when I was on site, when I was working with kids and families. And my job title has a lot of words in it, but I like to say hi, Jennifer. I like to say I'm an after-school cheerleader and a resource provider. So, like I said at the top of this, behavior management is always, always, always at the top of the list of PD opportunities that after-school staff say they need. We hear it time and time again. I know from my experience, it is a need, and I feel like perhaps it's getting to be even more of a need over the last several years, just with staff coming in, maybe with less experience working with kids having different needs as they come into your program. So this is a hot topic always, and we all need more tools in our tool belt. And after school has unique challenges when it comes to creating, sustaining behavior management systems. What kind of challenges do you all encounter on a day-to-day basis as you think about that behavior management system guiding positive choices? What do challenges look like right now for you? Feel free to unmute or add those to the chat.
All right, Tanya here. I'll go first again. Quick on the draw today. Look at me go. So honestly, I think it's interesting you're asking about the challenges we're facing, because I literally just yesterday went to the guidance counselor for a little assistance, just because I'm still trying to figure things out. And regarding the whole kids tattling versus telling type of thing, and trying to find appropriate redirection versus small problems versus big problems type of thing, and just wanting to find ways that I can incorporate the tools they're using during the school day and put those into our after school program, because we do carry the same expectations as they have during the school day. And so really wanting to make sure that we are staying in alignment with that. So she's going to be getting me like this visual chart that lays out small, medium, and big problems, so that way we can visualize that. She also gave suggested a tool. I forget exactly what it's called, something monster. I don't remember what it's called, Tattle Monster maybe. I hadn't heard of it before, but we really talked about like you could use like a shoebox, and we could have like a little form where they have to fill out like what happened, what could I have done to help the situation, just different things that gets the kid thinking, versus having to come to us right away, because so many times they're coming to us about, we have Susie coming to tell me that, Lisa is upset because Johnny and Timothy were mad at her. And it's like, well, what did you have to do with the problem? Like you literally have nothing to do with the situation. So just getting kids to take ownership of those things. Really, I feel like right now is just one of the biggest things that, and we have very little time with our kids. And so it's like really just trying to get things, getting them to listen and really be able to do things and get things accomplished. But they're so excited at the end of the day to just want to visit with friends. I mean, I get that. But it's still just trying to maintain that organization of getting them to meet the expectations.
That's great. And I love that you're working with school staff to make those expectations similar, share resources. I love that. And that fits really nicely into kind of what this tool can be for some kids. I saw in the chat, Leah shared about staff turnover, staff come in with little experience, and then once they get some experience, they're gone and you have to start over again. Stacy shared about staff consistency and attendance, availability, and being consistent in student expectations. Yeah, absolutely. All great challenges. Anything else anyone would like to share about? All right, feel free to continue to share in the chat, but I will start to share a little bit about what success plans are. So we'll get to take a look at the actual tools, and I have put some links in the calendar invite to both a Google folder and a Canva template. So you have access to all of these tools. So feel free to look at those, or you'll know where to get those links later. But success plans are one tool that you can add to your toolkit. These are a really great tool for proactively working with kids that may be high flyers in your program. If I were to walk into your program and within 5 minutes, I would probably know that kid's name. That might be a good candidate for creating a success plan. And it's also a tool for other kids, but especially those kids. And it is also a great way to formalize partnerships with the young person, with their family, and with school staff. Oh, I skipped a whole bunch of slides there. Go back. So success plans are not they're not comprehensive. They're not going to be your whole system. They're not a silver bullet that's going to magically make everything better, make all kids follow all expectations, and they may not be the right tool for every kid in every situation. So this is just one piece in your toolkit. So within this kind of suite of tools, this is what we have. So there is a form that will kind of solidify what the plan looks like. That's that first success plan form. There is an adult planning document, a youth planning document, and a tracking document. And these next slides will help you look a little bit closer at what those tools actually look like. So first is this youth planning tool. It's just an all about me. This gives the young person a place to say, here's some things I like about myself, my strengths, things I like to do and learn about. So you can get information about the student's strengths and interests directly from them. Find out what they like doing after school. And then maybe find out which parts of the program are hardest for them. When do they find it challenging to follow expectations? Have them identify which adults they feel safe with in the program, and at home or at school. That's a really going to be important information for you, because if you can, then pull that adult into this planning process. It could be a really you could help get really useful information and get some more buy-in from the kid, because an adult that they respect and feel safe with is on their team. So where in the after-school program do they feel safest? And then when they're doing a good job, how do they like to be recognized? I think it's really important in this process that young people are leading the way, that this is kind of the guiding star of your planning process, is what the young person says they like to do, where are their strengths, and then building off of those things. But you also want to gather some more information. So we have a similar document for adults. So we'll talk a little bit later about who might fill this out. And you may already have ideas of who might be involved, but this allows adults to kind of think through, as you think about that child, that young person in your program, what are their strengths and interests? What do they enjoy doing in the program? What's challenging? What helps them succeed? What tools are working at school and at home? And how have how's that adult seeing them enjoy being recognized for success? It's also important as you think about success planning, what does success actually look like for this young person? And that's something you can talk about with the young person as well. But you can't really measure how well your plan's working if you don't know what success looks like. And then the last piece on the back part of the document is kind of a menu of options. So as you think about actually creating the plan and deciding what it's going to look like, these are things that could be involved. So you might take some time to circle things that might work or have worked in other scenarios. And of course, this is not an exhaustive list. There's plenty of room to think of other options in each of the categories. Then, once you have that information, you pull it together in the actual planning document. So there's several categories here. I told you you have access to this specific document as a PDF in that Google folder. But if you're like, hey, the way this is worded doesn't work and doesn't match the language we use in our program or in our school district, we have the Canva template, so you can change this in any way that makes sense to you. But this is a starting point, at least, to think through different things that you could include in a plan. So what does their daily routine look like? Are they checking in with someone right away when they get to the program? Leadership opportunities, I think, are one of the biggest reasons this can really help a kid succeed. With those young people that are struggling in your program, they may also struggle all day at school. But if they know, hey, I have an important job to do after school, that can be really motivating for some kids to know, if I'm not there to lead those kindergartners between their classrooms, what's going to happen? So it can be really motivating. That can be hard for some staff. It can feel like a reward that these young people are getting, but having those conversations with staff about this is a really important thing. This young person is a leader and can be a leader, and we want to use maybe their strong emotions and the strengths that they do have for good in our program, right? So providing those proactive leadership opportunities can be really huge. Sometimes, young people are having big emotions in your program. How can you help them process those? What resources do you need? And how are you going to recognize success? So you'll spend some time as a team pulling that all together. And then there's some space to actually sign the plan and decide when you're going to check in again. The last piece of this is just a tracking sheet. So again, if it works better to do this in a different way, no worries, but this is one piece of the toolkit that you can use just to quickly say, okay, we created the plan on this day. We're planning to check in a week. And then you can make some quick notes here about any changes to the plan that are needed. So that is the tools. Any questions or thoughts about that before we kind of dive into some of the other pieces about this?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it wrong for me to think that even just silently implementing some of those things just between staff and the student first before going full student parent, is that okay? Like, is that acceptable, do you think? Or
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think bringing in a parent, I found a lot of success just building really that as a relationship building piece,
sure.
right? To sit down and say, hey, I know the last 5 days we've told you 3 things every day that we had to report on that your young person did. We had 3 negative things. Can we sit and talk about how we can have, I
Sure.
think that's the piece where you'd want to formalize
Okay.
it. But
Well, I'm thinking more along the lines like I'm not at the place where I'm having to tell a parent we're having all these issues. we're just seeing some things that I feel
Yeah,
like some of these tools could maybe keep us from getting to those issues. And
absolutely.
I definitely have some kids that are like, as soon as you even mention you're going to have to involve the parent, like there's a discomfort level for that kid and then they shut down. And I'd like
Yeah,
to avoid that shut down.
yeah.
So even just utilizing some of those things that were kind of that little checklist on that one
Mhm.
document as ways to maybe incorporate with some of those kids or
Absolutely.
involve those kids first without a full success. Like it's kind of
Yeah,
like our own personal success plan for that kid without,
absolutely.
okay, okay. Just
100%.
so I
And
wasn't
I know when
wrong.
I did a session on this originally in the fall, there was one program that said, I think we're just going to take that student sheet and have every single kid fill it out. Like, not even just to use that as a baseline, just to get to know kids and
Yeah, I
see
like
what,
that idea too.
how that could change the activities that you're providing or the yeah, how you're integrating some of those other tools. Absolutely. Use any of this in whatever way makes sense to you. Um, I think there's in the program I was in, there were a lot of kiddos that, were challenging during the day, maybe had some sort of behavior related special ed identification. And so this is what I found to be really successful is bringing in a team. But yeah, if you have students that, yeah, it's going to not make sense to bring in parents and it's only going to cause more troubles, absolutely. Um, Use this in whatever context you're in the way that makes the most sense. Great question.
Stephanie, can I add to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know your hesitancy to bring in parents, and I tried that strategy at the beginning of the year. The student ended up getting in serious trouble at school, and the mom was mad because she's like, Why wasn't I told, that she was being disrespectful a lot sooner before she got in school suspension? Like, why was I not brought in sooner? Why was I not told? And I mean, that really changed my perspective. So I mean, the girl would be like, no, 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 don't tell my mom. Don't tell my mom. Why? Because the mom was actually parenting. And so there were consequences at home for her behavior at school. That's really important. We're not their parents. We shouldn't be parenting them. When I had the boys from Africa teaching soccer clubs, they said, it's really sad that you have to parent and teach at the same time. And I thought, that's right. These parents need to learn how to parent. And maybe that's where we can give them some tools in their toolbox if they don't know how to parent and be like, hey, this is a behavior we're having. And if you don't address it now, you're going to have issues when they get into high school, like serious issues. So bring in the parents, start the conversation with them, because if they have consequences at home and then their behavior in the school day is a lot better, then good, because their parents need to be parenting.
Yeah, I think that's a great point as well. Yeah. And we talk about family engagement a lot. Um, which to me, this is family engagement and doing it I think being really careful to do it in a positive way, right? Like this is success planning. We want your child to succeed in our program, and here's one way we can go about this. So Tanya, happy to like talk about specific things later if there's like specific things you want to talk through, but yeah, I think that's a great point.
No, I'm good. I just want to make sure I wasn't thinking too far out of the box at some of those other things, but I totally understand the whole parent involvement too. I appreciate that perspective. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, as we think about why we would create a success plan, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit. This offers a positive frame for working with students who may have been labeled as challenging, or, every staff meeting you're talking with your staff about a certain number of students. This is a great way to frame positively. Hey, we do want this young person to succeed. It's a opportunity to proactively support students. Um, it also provides a way to make a plan to address barriers that make it difficult for young people to fully engage and succeed. And I think this is a really important piece is by kind of formalizing this into a plan, it helps make guiding positive behavior a team effort. You're saying, this is the team that's working on this, instead of putting it all on the young person to pull it together, meet expectations. You're instead addressing this and saying, hey, here's what we know about the kid, and this is how we're all going to work together to help them be successful in the program. So as we think about who, we've had some questions about this already. So if there are young people who are repeatedly not meeting program expectations, and I do want to be clear, like this doesn't supersede if you have, in your program handbook, you say, this number of violent, unsafe behaviors, if they run out of the building multiple times, maybe the program's not right for them. So this doesn't supersede some of those policies and procedures that you have in place. But if within reason, you can work on the expectations that they're not meeting, this would be a great tool. This would also be great, for those kids that maybe kind of blend into the background and seem disengaged or uninterested in what you're doing during the program time. So maybe they're not causing any problems at all, but they just don't seem to be having fun. This could be great for them. Also, if you're enrolling a new kid in your program, this could be a procedure that you add to every new kid in your program. Or if a caregiver or a teacher shares that they have a plan during the school day, or that they receive some kind of extra support during the school day or at home, then it would be great to proactively create a plan. This is kind of what I mentioned before. You might also consider having a wider group of students, your older kids, or everyone in your program, complete that All About Me sheet, just to help you better know the kids, the interests, the strengths of the young people in your program. So you can definitely pull apart these tools and use them how they are helpful. So as you're creating a plan, who should be involved? Like I said, the young person should lead the way in this process. If it's possible, it's very important to bring in their parent or caregiver. You and or other staff members who have connected, if that young person identifies a staff member, it would be great to involve them in this process. And then potentially another caring adult. So if they have a para or a classroom teacher, a special ed teacher, or, maybe they really connect with even like their bus driver. I don't know, like who knows who the caring adults are in their life. But if you know that information, if you could involve them, that would be fantastic. This is kind of common sense, but when do you want to do this? Make sure you're choosing a time that you can focus your attention on this meeting. So probably not right after school as you're getting kids checked in, but if it's possible to do in the morning before school or at the end of program time when a caregiver comes to pick up the kid, or if it works in everyone's schedule, school's okay with it. If it's possible to do during the school day, could do that as well. As you're thinking about getting that information, all the adults that you are involving do not necessarily have to be at a planning meeting. So, you can provide that one sheet to them and say, hey, if you have 5 minutes, could you fill this out about whichever kid? And then that can provide you some information. So, but you want to think about, are people going to fill these things out beforehand and you create the planning document together, or are adults and the student going to do the planning documents during the meeting? So just thinking logistically about some of that. And then once you have all of that information is when you're going to create the plan. So, the big question is knowing the strengths, interests, all the other information you've collected, how could you co-design their day so that they're more likely to succeed? Make sure that this plan is communicated to all relevant staff. So any staff who work with this kid, make sure they understand it, and they understand like why each part is put in there and why it's important to be consistent with the plan. I think that can be, like I said, that can be difficult for some staff if they don't understand this kid's causing problems. Like, why did they get to be a leader? Or why did they get to skip out on an activity and sit in the calm corner or whatever, so having those conversations with your staff about, we're providing what this kid needs to succeed in our program right now. They get a fidget because it's a tool to help them regulate their emotions, not a toy. Having some of those conversations is going to be really important. Make sure you're checking in with the young person regularly to see if it's working for them. And then any follow-up meetings that you have with the young person, with their parent, make sure that you put it on your calendar and that you actually follow up. Really important that you kind of keep this plan fresh, and use it for as long as it's useful, right? Like it doesn't have to be used forever, but you can, as it is in place, make sure you're checking in and following up. Follow-up meetings don't have to be anything formal. It can be at pickup time. Hey, just wanted to check in. From your perspective, Grandma, how are things going? And with the young person as well. So like I said, the Canva template for all of these tools, the link is in the meeting invite. So feel free to go in, make whatever changes make sense to you. But then all materials are also in that Google folder. And you have that link as well in the meeting invite. Just a couple of other things. Last week we did a webinar about a resource called Behavior Management Training That Sticks. I'll show you a picture of what that looks like and a link to that next. But if you're interested, that is a training resource for staff that is a little bit more as you think about holistically behavior in your program. How are you as a staff talking about those things and integrating those things? And how are you as a supervisor coaching your staff? So happy to share that recording with you if you'd like to access that. It will be on our website, but it is not yet. Next week, we're going to be talking about partnerships, just a real 101, like what does it look like to develop partnerships? What are the basics as you're building strong, lasting partnerships? Here is that behavior management training that sticks. If you want to take a look at the website, it is a resource that costs money. It costs $70 for the kit and then like $18 or something to ship it. So not free. We have a couple out in the field right now that people are trying. So Beyond School Bells does own a couple of kits. So if you are interested but don't want to purchase it, let me know. So once we get those kits back, we can send one on to you. And that's what I have. There's my email address, which I can put in the chat as well. What thoughts, what questions do people have about any of this? Throw a lot at you and not a lot of time. So does this feel like it could be useful? Or, as we think about chunking it up into little parts, I love the thought of even just using that list of, things you can add to the plan as kind of a how you could think about universally designing your program to be help kids. Maybe it's creating a calm corner that any kid can access. Those sorts of things are going to help prevent behaviors before they ever come up. Any thoughts or questions? Yeah, Michelle, I'd be very interested since I never worked with, are you thinking like what age? Elementary or middle school? Elementary, okay. So I'd be very curious. I worked at an elementary level. I'd be curious if anyone works with middle school students, what kind of tweaks they would suggest making for older kids. So if anyone does that, let me know. All right. Any last thoughts? Yeah, elementary needs it more. Yeah. By middle school, at least your reasoning. Jennifer's used. What'd you think, Jennifer? What's your experience been like? If you can share.
Hey, sorry, I'm in the preschool today, and I just handed them all musical instruments so they knew tub time. Anyway, so it's really loud in here. And then I sent my picture a message because I have headphones on, so it's not as loud for me. Um, anyway, my experience was I had two very, very, very like difficult. We had to pick one kid out of the program for a week, and when he came back, I handed the mom those sheets because I was asking Stephanie about them. And that was helpful. I mean, it was helpful to know what they liked because, what came back was they needed positive interactions. I mean, out of the 8 things the mom wrote down for these kids, and even the kid was answering, was they need positive direction. They need praise for the things that they are doing right, because these boys made multiple really bad choices. And so that was very helpful when I changed their behavior. I had stickers, and they were being helpful because like they wanted to blow up the balls. I was like, hey, thank you for blowing up the balls. Here's a sticker, because that was something they came to me and said, hey, can we blow up the balls? And I said, sure, go ahead and do it. And so there was another, rewarding their try, change their behavior more towards the good from the bad. So
I love that. So simple, but without kind of having some intentionality behind it, it's hard to think of it in the moment. So love that.
right. And I wouldn't have known that that is what these kids needed had I not had them fill out these forms.
Love that. Susan said she's going to try with some gifted and high ability kids, just towards more of just a growth, thinking about how they can grow and develop rather than necessarily addressing behaviors, which I love. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, these are tools that are continuing to develop. So if you use them, I would love feedback, know how we can make them better. But thank you all for joining this morning. I know you're all doing lots of many things, teaching preschool and have lots of other stuff going on. So I appreciate you taking time. I always learn from all of you. So yes, this recording, you can it should be on our website within a week, beyondschoolbells.org. But it may take a little more time. So if it's not up within a week, you can email me and I can send it to you. All right. Well, thank you all. I appreciate you. Talk to you later.